Now, if we look at the fire brigade, how exactly is this dreadful working tax going to affect them?
Well, this is not the first time over the last 9 years where a government has brought in national insurance employers' contributions. We've got some experience from previous government decisions in relation to what happens.
Can we just concentrate on this, please, on the question? Every answer from you is like a history lesson on previous Conservative governments. Can we just talk about the budget that is in front of you today? Can you tell me how this dreadful job tax that your government has just brought in is going to affect the fire brigade?
So because we've experienced with the previous government bringing in national insurance contributions for employers, we know what's happened in the past, which forms our view in terms of what may happen in the future. And in the past, what the government's done when they've raised national insurance contributions for employees is to give us the monies that would cost us as an employer to pay that contribution. So we're hopeful, and this was a question asked to the Chief Financial Officer about an hour ago, that in the next 2 weeks we'll have a better idea of the contribution from the government, the current government, in relation to this contribution. That's as I understood it.
Yeah, what is the actual figure? I'll ask Faye, she'll give me a straightforward answer. Faye, how much will it cost the fire brigade, please?
I knew you were going to ask that, and I was trying to search it while you were talking. So can I come back to you in the meeting?
I think
I've got the answer.
Oh,
you're out of time.
He always knows the answer.
I think you will.
No, I'm sure I should have asked David, who always knows the answer. David, can you just tell me what that figure is? I'm sure everybody round the table would like to know.
I think
Dave,
there was...
Mr Mayor, can I not just hear this figure?
I'm in the hands of the chair.
Those are the rules, I'm afraid, Chair.
Do you know, if you knew the answer, which you don't, then you could have given it to me within time. You're a disgrace.
Assembly member, if what Mr Bellamy is going to say is one figure, say the figure, please.
I'm afraid it doesn't look like one figure. It looks like quite a few figures. Maybe next month.
However, I did hear an undertaking that the Assembly Member Hall would be written to, and I would urge you to do that as soon as possible.
You talk about the good work that the police force is doing, and there is an awful lot of good work, but it's surely in danger with this latest budget. If we do lose 2,300 officers, all of this will be put at jeopardy. This is serious, Sadiq. We all know you will end up with a lot more money between now and the final budget. And I would like you to commit to putting that money into policing so that Londoners can feel safe.
Thank you. I think we're in danger of going
No, I'd like an answer, please.
Yeah, we're in danger of going to a bit of to and fro. I think the Mayor, I think if you could answer...
Then, Chair, ask him to answer.
Let me finish.
Just minutes earlier, Susan Hall dismantled Sadiq Khan's circle, and the aftermath is savage. This wasn't ordinary politics but a strike so fierce and unapologetic that his supporters were left fumbling, stunned, and pretending not to register the reality erupting before them. Hall didn't merely criticize, she revealed their frailty, their hypocrisy, and the disgraceful way they've attempted to disguise London's turmoil as someone else's burden, and tonight we must confront why this exchange could reshape the dialogue about who truly governs the capital. She marched straight into the core of Khan's domain and torched the polished facade his advisors have peddled, and with language sharp as steel, she reminded every viewer that Londoners aren't naive, that behind staged appearances and flashy PR, his administration is decayed with excuses, arrogance, and failure. She didn't whisper, she didn't soften, she spoke what millions already believe, that Khan's leadership has run this city into the ground while still showing the nerve to act insulted when finally confronted. Let's be clear, Hall shifted the argument to territory he cannot command, because his circle thrives on victimhood, finger-pointing, and painting critique as an assault on London itself, yet she called the bluff and reminded citizens that when violence escalates, when officers are spat on, struck, and treated like pawns, the mayor's camp remains silent. Where is their outrage, their endless flow of condemnation when blood is spilled on the pavement? Nowhere. Suddenly these supposed guardians of justice have nothing. Hall struck decisively, the double standard is shameless, and residents are exhausted, which is why her challenge resonated so powerfully, because this is not about sterile figures or bland policy papers but about daily life in this city. Parents too fearful to let children walk from school, commuters shrinking back when fights erupt underground, shopkeepers who no longer bother reporting thefts knowing nothing will change. This is the London Khan's office produced, and Hall hurled that harsh reality straight back at them, leaving allies defenseless, reliant on a friendly press to echo narratives and spin disasters as uncontrollable. But she denied them that refuge, she demanded explanations, she demanded accountability, and the quiet that followed was deafening. If Khan's people had proof, if they truly had achievements, they would have countered instantly, yet instead they sat exposed, humiliated, fully aware that Hall had spoken truths they wanted buried. She even weaponized their own tactics, reminding everyone how Khan's side loves to attack police whenever force is used in protests, flipping that storyline by pointing to brutal assaults on officers during Palestinian demonstrations, nearly 900 arrests, countless officers abused, yet no outrage, none at all. The very individuals who insist on inquiries when officers defend themselves suddenly lose their voices when violence targets the police, and Hall's piercing question, "Where is your condemnation?" cut like a blade. The answer is simple: there isn't any, because for Khan's camp outrage is never about principle, only strategy, and that is the brilliance of Hall's move. She stripped away the spin, exposing raw hypocrisy, not theorizing in abstractions but painting vivid pictures of officers under siege, a metropolis drowning in disorder, and a government more invested in image than protection. This wasn't just a political strike, it was a moral judgment, and when she stared at Khan's supporters and demanded why their outrage always comes with conditions, the atmosphere shifted. You could feel the unease, the shame, the undeniable recognition that the emperor stands unclothed. That is why her intervention matters. Susan Hall didn't just reveal a political weakness, she revealed a cultural sickness in London's leadership, the notion that accountability flows only one direction, while the public must endure endless lectures from a mayor unwilling to hold his allies to equal standards. Hall proved that Londoners see through the charade, they are exhausted by selective outrage, weary of silence when officers are brutalized, and fed up with watching Khan's circle parade as guardians of justice while functioning as architects of disorder, and if the opening strike was the blow, this was the aftershock. Here her assault turned devastating, for she didn't merely highlight Khan's muteness but ripped back the curtain on his entire operation, the glossy facade, the endless statements, the smug confidence, all crumbling beneath one inescapable reality. Khan's team thrives on diversion, not remedies, and when slogans are stripped away, what remains is a city bleeding, a mayor hiding, and an entourage resembling a PR firm more than a government. Let's stop pretending. Citizens aren't blind, they've endured this cycle for years. Knife violence climbs, Khan blames Westminster, transit chaos erupts, he blames funding, police stretch to collapse, he blames systems, always another scapegoat, always another excuse, until scrutiny shifts toward his own failures, then suddenly silence becomes the refuge. That isn't leadership, it's cowardice, and Hall's genius was to name it aloud, rendering it impossible to ignore. Her words, sharp and relentless, struck Khan's camp like a hammer. If accountability is demanded from officers, it must equally fall on violent demonstrators, and that single line ripped the mask off his strategy. Under his tenure, responsibility isn't about fairness, it's about narrative. Officers dragged into headlines for doing their job spark instant investigations, yet when protesters spit on police, hurl objects, send them to hospitals, there's not a word, not even a whisper, and that isn't justice, it's politics at its ugliest. What burned his allies most was that Hall didn't rant, she cited facts, nearly 900 arrests during the September 7th unrest, officers kicked, punched, assaulted, testimony from a commander spelled out in black and white, hard evidence. And still, where was City Hall's outrage, the fiery defense of officers preventing anarchy? Nowhere. Hall forced them to stare at their own hypocrisy and they had no rebuttal, none, and that's why her intervention reverberates, because it wasn't a slip, it was deliberate demolition, cornering Khan's team with a question they cannot afford: why do you fall silent when uniforms are the victims? That is the question echoing tonight, and with every moment unanswered, the damage spreads. It cuts so deeply because it strikes at the essence of leadership. Londoners demand consistency. If you claim to champion justice, then defend it universally. If you demand accountability, then impose it everywhere. Yet Khan's crew has built its brand on selective outrage, twisting their moral compass to fit the narrative, and Hall torched that duplicity, forcing people to see that what's being protected isn't justice, it's power. Make no mistake, this extends beyond policing, it's about a culture of excuses, and her words carried weight because they linked every failing. A mayor unwilling to own crime is the same mayor dodging transport collapse, housing chaos, economic decline. It's the same disease, blame shifting, dodging scrutiny, waiting storms out. But Hall showed Londoners are done waiting. The silence after her challenge wasn't just awkward, it was confession. If his allies truly had proof of success, they'd have shouted it. Instead, they offered blank stares and weak deflections, and in politics silence screams louder than words. Silence is guilt, weakness, the mask slipping. Hall tapped into the city's raw frustration. Ordinary citizens uninterested in PR spin crave action, crave safety, crave fairness, and when she asked why Khan's team remains mute while officers are targeted, she gave voice to millions long shaking their heads at leaders unwilling to side with order. That suspense matters, because his silence cannot last. Each day without condemnation shifts the narrative further out of his control. Each headline contrasting Hall's fire with his muteness deepens the wound. This isn't a storm he can ride out, it's a reckoning, and Hall lit the fuse. Her assault wasn't just about muteness, but about rot at the heart of their leadership. what she exposed surpasses one protest or one debate. It's about a culture of hypocrisy where rules apply only when convenient. Strip away the rehearsed excuses and you face the ugliest truth. Khan's team betrayed the people of London. Consider it, a city where officers are beaten in daylight, blades terrorize neighborhoods, families fear walking the streets, and yet leaders worry more about optics than fixing crisis. That isn't mere cowardice, it's complicity, because by refusing to condemn violence against police, they declare some victims matter and others do not, and that's disgrace, not leadership. Hall framed it precisely. She wasn't reciting figures, she demanded a moral reckoning, holding a mirror to their faces. If you care about justice, why are you mute when justice itself is attacked? If you value safety, why excuse the very violence consuming London? Their silence wasn't awkward, it was damning, because silence equals consent, silence equals approval, silence is the nod that tells agitators City Hall will look away. The weight of her intervention lies in what it exposes about the office of mayor. What happened to the moral compass? When did spin outrank safety? When did conditional outrage replace principle? This is the scandal, the shame Hall forced into the light, and it feels explosive because it lands in a city already seething with frustration. Londoners told endlessly to be patient, accept excuses, believe spin patience has snapped. Hall crystallized that anger into one conclusion: Khan's circle is unfit to lead, not for one misstep but for abandoning leadership's basic duty, defending everyone equally, not just when politically useful. The emotional blow comes from betrayal, because people expect better. They expect leaders to stand up for officers assaulted in their streets, to be first to condemn, not last to dodge, and when that expectation shatters, the betrayal cuts deepest. Hall weaponized that feeling, ensuring everyone in the room and watching at home felt it, and that's why this outrage matters, not because of statistics but because Khan's team was exposed in their duplicity, seen not as leaders but spin doctors, whispers turning into headlines, questions into demands, narratives spinning out of control. When Hall voiced what many whispered, she flipped the script. Suddenly it wasn't her on defense, it was Khan's allies scrambling to explain why their silence looks like complicity. And here lies the most damning part: this scandal won't vanish, because every dodge, every blank stare, every refusal to produce evidence only fuels suspicion. The scandal doesn't fade, it festers, and Hall ensured it will.